Good morning, all. I hope all of
Good
you are
morning.
doing good. Today we have with us Dr. Sushil Kumar Raina. Sir is a scientist at ICAR NBPGR Regional Station Srinagar. Sir is going to deliberate on the topic of plant phenotyping for forage crop improvement. Sir, you are
Cool.
sir, you are audible as well as visible, and your presentation is also visible. Please
Okay,
start.
thank you, sir.
चला
Thank you, Majid Saab. Very good morning to everyone. First of all, I would like to thank NADCL for providing me an opportunity to share my understanding on this topic, plant phenotyping for forage crop improvement. And then, of course, I would also like to express my gratitude to my previous seniors and colleagues at National Institute of Abiotic Stress Management, Baramati, who helped me to inculcate an interest in plant phenotyping and get an understanding uh, to a bit of the topic, that is plant phenotyping. So today our topic will be plant phenotyping for forage crop improvement. And on the right side of the panel, you might be seeing some pictures. They are just to emphasize the transition in the phenotyping technology over a period of time. As we see in the top of the panel, earlier this is a sort of phenotyping that used to be the traditional one, where we used to go to the fields, record data, and we used to be having log registers and fill in the columns recording the data. However, over the period of time, some new technologies came in, and at the click, as we see in the center of the panel, on the single click, you get a data point, and you need not to enter it in the data book. It will itself get stored. So later you can retrieve. Then on the bottom right is a further refinement of this technology. It is basically an indigenously developed economics tool. What it does, it involves a system of railing within the plot, experimental plot. So what you do, you run a structure over this railing, and the structure is having a system laptop attached to a camera, and on the left side of this structure is a barcode reader, and all the lines on the left side are tagged with the barcode. So when the system moves over this railing, the barcode reader reads the code which has been assigned to a particular line, and the camera automatically captures the images, and this way the data is recorded. So this is just to emphasize a transition in the phenotyping over a period of time. So coming to our topic of the present day, first let us have some introduction. As we see, over the past few decades, there have been rapid strides in the development of genotyping. So a lot of new technologies have come up in this field. So because of these technologies, there has been actually there has been a development of new technologies which have markedly led to increase in the rate at which genotyping can be achieved. Not only the speed, moreover, the cost of genotyping per sample has also drastically been reduced. Owing to these factors, lot of genotypic data is being available to the plant researchers. However, because of all this, a sort of explosion of genomic data is being available at the hands of a scientist. However, as we know that for attaining a crop improvement, we need to have a strong phenotypic data which will complement the genotypic data. So that will ultimately lead to the improvement into a particular trait. Hence, we need to have some robust system of phenotyping. However, up till now, there was not a matching increase in the phenotypic information. So there was some sort of phenotypic bottleneck, which was which earnestly needed to be removed. Hence, to address this phenotypic bottleneck issue, there has been development of new phenomics tools, and these new phenomics tools are able to cater to the demands of phenotyping on a very large scale, and hence we call them as high throughput phenotyping, and sometimes phenomics also. So this phenotypic bottleneck is being addressed nowadays through the help of this high throughput phenotyping concept. So in a shortest possible way, what a phenotyping means is a set of methodologies and protocols that are used to measure the plant growth, architecture, composition with a certain accuracy and precision at different scales of organization, from organ level to the canopies level. So the high throughput phenotyping that we are discussing right now has definitely some merits over the traditional one. We will be describing some of them. Number one, it is a non-invasive in nature. That means we need not to use up the sample. It is non-destructive. We don't we don't destroy the sample while taking recording the data. Number two is that we can measure dynamic traits like growth. Since the plant sample from where data is being recorded is present live there itself, so we can go again and again over a period of time and measure this trait. So these dynamic traits can be easily recorded compared to the conventional methods where we used to destroy the sample earlier. Then it is very high throughput. That means large number of samples can be phenotyped in a very short period of time. Definitely it is not laborious, and it is easy to perform compared to the traditional system of recording data in the fields or undergoing some laboratory experimentation using long protocols. The another advantage of this phenotyping system is, suppose you commit some error in the experimentation. However, if it had been some traditional system, then you would have to start afresh. The entire protocol, then you would have to go for a fresh sample and then start the entire experimentation afresh. However, that is not the case with this image-based technologies. Since you already have image stored in your system, so you can retrieve the image and you can use a refined protocol and you can get the data. And last but not the least is that this high throughput phenotyping, it exploits fluorescence in near infrared and IR spectra. So this way it permits the analysis of traits which are otherwise inaccessible to the human eye. So it is a sort of novel variation which we are able to identify through the use of this high throughput phenotyping, which would not have been possible previously. Now, coming to the concept of this high throughput phenotyping in relation to the plant breeding. So this high throughput phenotyping definitely has an edge because it helps us to improve the genetic gains. And it is ultimately the genetic gains which a plant breeder is interested in. So how this phenotyping helps us to achieve the higher genetic gains over a period of time is given by the equation proposed by Arias in 2018, is that RT, that is the genetic gains over time, is equal to I that is the selection intensity, into R means the selection accuracy, and sigma A is the genetic variance, and Y is the years per cycle. So how the high throughput phenotyping improves the selection accuracy? That way it improves the genetic gain, because selection accuracy is one of the pillars of achieving the genetic gains. The other pillars which are influenced positively by high throughput phenotyping are accuracy of the quantitative disease scoring. And number third is the decision support system. which are made more robust through the use of this high throughput phenotyping. Not only this, high throughput phenotyping also contributes to the optimization of several other components which are important for achieving higher genetic gains, such as size of the breeding program. You know, as with the previous breeding programs, lot of phenotyping work was required. So hence, depending upon the resource availability, you would have gone for some breeding program depending upon the availability of resources. So mostly the breeding programs size would have been smaller. However, over the period of time, with the improvement of this phenotyping technology, now we can go for large breeding programs. That means we can include large number of lines since we have efficient phenotypic tool available with us. So this way, it has been an important contribution of high throughput phenotyping. The other components are faster breeding cycles, accuracy in selection as already discussed, then the genetic variation, that is novel genetic variation, which is been exploited by IR, NIR, and fluorescence systems. Then the decision support tools that have already been discussed. So once we have introduced the concept of high throughput phenotyping, now we will go to the different imaging technologies that are being used in vogue. So first of all, it is the visible imaging. It is used basically to phenotype the morphological traits, crop phenology, shoot biomasses, then photosynthetic chlorophyll fluorescence. This chlorophyll fluorescence is used to evaluate photosynthetic efficiency, photoprotection, oxidative stresses. Then number three is the hyperspectral imaging. It is used to evaluate the biochemical and physiological changes which are induced by environmental and nutrient stresses. And number fourth is the thermal imaging, which detects water and heat stresses. Now we will discuss all these technologies one by one in a little bit depth. Visual imaging. Visual imaging, it is the digital imaging in the visible wavelength range, that is 400 to 700 nanometer range. What basically the visual imaging does is that images are captured with the help of a digital camera optical camera, and the images are stored, and later those images are used for extraction of data. And the simplest form of the raw data from these images is the density of pixels in different wave bands, such as red channel, green, and blue channel, that is primary colors. So it basically uses the pixel density in these three main ranges. So it is also called as RGB imaging. So though it is the most primitive type of imaging, a lot of improvement or refinement has been made in this visual imaging, because it does not cost too much, and initial investments are very low in this RGB imaging. So if protocols available, we can achieve a lot of phenotyping through this method. It has been used to quantify the plant growth, senescence, nutrient deficiencies, pathogen infections, and stress responses. And not only this, even visual images are generally used as reference images when we use other imaging techniques. For example, they are used as reference for the IR imaging or chlorophyll fluorescence imaging or NIR imaging. Some of the other potential applications of RGB imaging or this visual imaging are counting the crop characteristics, such as we can count the stand of a particular crop. Then we can count the number of spikes. We can also estimate the yield components. Not only this, we can monitor the disease or senescence, or we can monitor the crop growth. Number three, that we can have three-dimensional reconstructions from RGB imaging. Some of the other applications of this RGB imaging are that it has been used for grain quality determination. Proper protocols have been published in this field. Then it can be used for sorting and grading of fruits, determination of the leaf water potential, chlorophyll content, nutrient status, and several applications in the tissue culture have been achieved through this RGB imaging. Now, second is the chlorophyll fluorescence imaging. This chlorophyll fluorescence imaging has widely been used to detect and quantify different stresses that affect the photosynthesis. So what is basically the concept is that when our photosynthetically active radiation is allowed to be incident upon a particular leaf surface, a part of this energy is used up by the plant to carry the electron transport and for assimilation of the carbohydrates, which is called as photochemical quenching. However, a part of this radiation is dissipated as heat in the anthocyanin cycles. So that is called the non-photochemical quenching. And a part of this radiation, which is emitted back at a higher wavelength, is called the chlorophyll, is emitted as a fluorescence. So this is the basic concept, and this concept is being used in the chlorophyll fluorescence detections. There are various approaches, of course, in this also. However, the pulse amplitude modulated approach is being most widely used to measure the photosynthetic efficiency. What is this PAM approach basically is that it uses saturating light flash of approximately very short duration, that is for 1 second at a very high intensity, more than approximately 8,000 micromoles per square meter per second, so that all the PS2 reaction centers are transiently closed and the maximal fluorescence is achieved. So this way we use this methodology to detect the stress which a plant is experiencing. Of course, this system, this chlorophyll fluorescence has been used by us in case of mung bean to study the genetic variation in mung bean genotypes. So we had two genotypes, IC329039 and IC415144. These two genotypes were used for change in chlorophyll fluorescence over a period of time after the leaves were excised. So what we did, we checked the fluorescence, initial fluorescence and fluorescence over a period of several time points, that is 60 minutes post excision, 2 hours post excision, then 300 minutes and 420 minutes post leaf excision. And as we see in the figure, the genotype 415144 is able to maintain its photosynthetic efficiency in near 0.8. However, the genotype 329039 shows a sharp reduction in its fluorescence over a period of time from 0.8 to approximately 0.5. This is more visible in those these images below. As we see, the leaf images have been acquired at different time points through the help of chlorophyll fluorescence measuring instrument. As we see, the blue pixels are predominant in this genotype 415144, and we hardly see any red pixels. Red pixels means abundance of these red pixels denotes senescence and leaf destruction. However, blue pixels or blue color corresponds to the healthy leaf. So we see a contrasting variation in these two genotypes. However, this, as seen in this 329039 genotype, we see at last image there is preponderance of the red pixels. It means the leaf of this genotype is almost dead at the last time point. So there are some other applications also. Then we discuss here the thermal imaging. So what we know is that whenever the objects are maintained at ambient temperatures, they give off infrared radiation of approximately 10,000 nanometers. And this IR radiation between 8,000 and 14,000 nanometers is detected by handheld IR thermometers or canopy temperature guns, which are converted into the temperature reading. So what basically these IR cameras basically do is that they capture the IR infrared radiation that is being emitted by the crop canopy, and that temperature tells us the measure of relative evaporative cooling of the canopy of a particular plant. So the plants which have more of evaporative cooling, they will tend to have lower temperature, canopy temperature. However, those with less amount of evaporative cooling will exhibit higher canopy temperatures. So, and this canopy temperature is an important physiological trait, as a correlation, strong correlation has been observed between the canopy temperature and the yields under drought. So genotypes which are able to maintain low canopy temperatures under drought conditions are known to yield more, while the genotypes with high canopy temperatures yield less under the drought condition. This has been reported in wheat, in mung beans also we have reported this, and several other crops also it has been reported. As we see on the figure on in the right of the panel, the two genotypes 415144 and 329039, they were exposed to drought, and IR cameras were used to acquire the imaging. And this is a scale which has different colors, and each color corresponds to different temperatures. The as the colors go from green to blue to black, and they are lower temperatures. However, as they grow towards red and pink, they are the higher temperatures. So using the figure here, we can make a guess that this 329039 has preponderance of these blue and green pixels. So it means it has a lower canopy temperature. However, 415144 has exhibits dominance of these pink and red colors, and hardly shows any green or blue colors. So it shows high canopy temperature. In fact, the same has been converted into the pixels with temperatures lower than 30, pixels with temperature range 31 to 34, and pixels with temperature range more than 34. So as we see, 329039 exhibits dominance of these pixels in the lower temperature range, that is less than 30 degrees centigrade. However, 415144 exhibits dominance of pixels corresponding to higher temperatures. That means in the range 31 to 34 and more than 34. So this way also we are able to identify that this 329039 has a lower canopy temperature, and it will be one of our candidates for incorporating drought tolerance. Similarly, we also studied this thermal imaging in a set of 48 mung bean genotypes exposed to drought conditions. As we see, most of the genotypes exhibit a sharp increase in their canopy temperatures when they are exposed to the drought. However, there are some genotypes, for example, VC6173C and 325770, which are able to maintain a constant canopy temperature even when exposed to drought. So these will be our candidates for future improvement programs. Then we will also discuss the use of this thermal imaging for identifying promising plant microbe interaction for stress mitigation. This work has been published earlier by one of our colleagues, Govinda Swamiji. Here, what we did is that soybean plants were inoculated of different lines, were inoculated with local Bradyrhizobium and with other strains such as Bradyrhizobium alkani and Bradyrhizobium japonicum. So when they were inoculated with these, later they were exposed to drought, and the IR images were captured at different stages. The scale is the same as has already been discussed. So as we see here, that when we use local Bradyrhizobium for inoculation, we observe that this under a well-watered condition, there is a predominance of the blue pixels. However, when we expose the same genotype to water stress, we observe that blue pixels are lacking. It means that the canopy temperature has risen. So it is a sort of drought susceptibility. However, when the same set of genotypes are inoculated with the Bradyrhizobium japonicum, we observe that even under water stress, this genotype is able to maintain predominance of these blue colored pixels. So it means it has acquired stress, and which is because of the inoculation with this Bradyrhizobium japonicum type of strain. So this is also another application of thermal imaging where we can identify useful plant microbe interactions. Then another system of imaging that is in vogue is the multi or hyperspectral imaging. So this basically involves canopy reflectance measurement in the visible to near infrared regions. So what is basically a canopy reflectance? It is the amount of energy that is emitted by a surface at a particular wavelength. However, the difference between the multispectral and hyperspectral is the number of bands that are being used. While in multispectral, only few wavelengths are selected. Usually 3 to 10 bands are selected and data is acquired from them. However, when we go for hyperspectral reflectance, we use more number of bands and also narrow bands compared to the multispectral sensors. Since we are using more number of bands in hyperspectral reflectance, we get more data points, and hence it has more efficiency compared to the multispectral. This is clear from the examples that if a multispectral imagery can map a particular forested area, the hyperspectral imagery has the power of resolution to map even tree species within that forest. So whenever you use this multispectral and hyperspectral imaging, several indices have been developed which facilitate the identification of the useful genotypes or useful plants. So several indices have been developed, such as water index, normalized difference, vegetation index. Then another is carotenoid index. Similarly, there are other pigment indices. However, the most common one that is the normalized difference vegetation index, NDVI. Although used earlier by Rouse, there have been several refinements over time. What it is basically, it is the difference in spectral reflectance in the red and near infrared regions of the spectrum. So the formula is basically reflectance in the near infrared minus reflectance in the red region divided by reflectance in the near infrared plus reflectance in the red region. So what is basically principle is that the healthy plant leaves absorb more of light in the red region and reflect more of near infrared light, because of which it results in high NDVI values. Contrary to this, the disease leaves absorb more in the infrared regions and reflect more of red light, and thus tend to have low NDVI values. However, as a very important problem with the NDVI parameter is that as the canopy tends to get dense, that means when the leaf area index goes to 4 or more, the light tends to saturate and the NDVI values don't hold good. In that case, several alternatives are available. One of them is the use of green-red NDVI. Then another tool which is being used in this high throughput phenotyping is the near infrared spectroscopy. So what is basically the principle of this near infrared spectroscopy is that near infrared radiation is allowed to be incident upon an object. So whenever this NIR falls upon the object, the spectral characteristics of the radiation changes through a wavelength dependent scattering and the absorption. The factors that contribute to this change are the chemical composition and physical characteristics of the material and light scattering properties of the structure. In fact, this NIR largely depends upon the vibrational energy around the bonds in carbon, nitrogen, carbon, oxygen, and other biological bonds. So then there is another one tool in this high throughput phenotyping, that is the LiDAR. LiDAR is the light detection and ranging. It involves the use of laser light to calculate the shortest distance to the target object by evaluating the time of emission and time of detection of the reflected light. An important advantage of this LiDAR is that it provides the 3D information without the need for any processing. Moreover, it also has an active visible to near infrared light sensing technique, mostly in the range of 800 to 1000 nanometers. Moreover, it has enough signal at non-blinding power levels and a good mix of canopy penetration and return signal that is highly sensitive to plant canopy height and architecture. However, the disadvantages that are associated with the LiDAR is that initial investment in the hardwares are very huge. Moreover, it may require several layers of scannings. So when we are talking about high throughput phenotyping, we would like to discuss a little bit of this phenotypics platforms that are available in India. In India, some high throughput phenotyping platforms are available within ICR system. 4 systems that are well functional within ICR system are one is that ICR IARI, Indian Agricultural Research Institute. The second one is in CRIDA. Then third one is in IIHR Bangalore, and fourth one was developed by us at National Institute of Abiotic Stress Management, Baramati. So it is a LamnaTech platform. I would like to have a brief introduction to this system. So what is this? Is basically the system is housed within a smart greenhouse. Smart greenhouse in the sense is that within this greenhouse, we can control the temperature of different chambers at different temperature different temperature ranges. Moreover, we can also control the humidity of the different chambers. Then what is basically this LaminaTech platform is a system of railings, then a conveyor belt on these railings and an imaging cabinet. So on these aluminum railings are cartridges which carry the pots that are RFID tagged. So whenever we need to, and this imaging cabinet, we need to discuss also. This imaging cabinet has, there are three imaging cabinets. One is for acquiring images in the visible range. The second one is for acquiring the infrared range imaging. Then third is the near infrared imaging. Images are acquired from the top of the chamber also, as well as side pose also. So it has also a robust software system also. So whenever we want to image a particular set of experiments, so the commands are given to the system, and through the help of the conveyor belt, these pots are allowed to enter one by one in this imaging cabinet. Once a particular pot enters a visible chamber, the doors close, images are acquired from the top cameras as well as side camera, and later this same pot moves to the second imaging cabinet, where IR images are acquired from the top as well as side. Then the same pot moves to the third cabinet, where image is acquired in the NIR region, and this pot then moves out and is carried back to its position. So this way, all the pots are imaged and they are moved back with the help of conveyor belt system. Once the imaging is done, these images are stored in the server, and in the period of time, watering is also required during the experiment. Hence, there are watering and weighing stations. So what they will do, they will water the pots as per the requirement and weigh them, and all those readings are also recorded in the server. So all those images as well data can be retrieved later and used for image analysis through the help of robust software such as Lemna based Lemna Grid and other softwares. So these are basic components of the imaging facility which has been developed within Niasam Baramati. Then once we are done with the various technologies used in the high throughput phenotyping, then we will be discussing in brief about use of these technologies for improvement of forage crops. As we know, the main objective of forage breeding is to have higher shoot biomass, more dry matter yield. Then we need to have quality biomass. Quality biomass means the biomass, it should be palatable. Animal should eat it. Then it should have good digestibility. Once it has been consumed by animal, it should be digested properly. It should not create issues with the digestion. Then it should be rich in nutrient contents. And of course, it should be free from anti-quality factors. Then it should have vigor and persistence, so that even after cutting it, we should get more and more. Then it should have tolerance to various kind of biotic and abiotic stresses, because we're often encountering in the present scenario of climate change these biotic and abiotic stresses. So while phenotyping for photosynthetic efficiency and forage yield, we know that yield is determined by interception of incident solar irradiance by crop canopy and conversion of the intercepted radiant energy to the potential chemical energy. And ultimately, the forage yield depends upon the photosynthetic area of the canopy and overall photosynthetic efficiency of the crop. Hence, measuring photosynthesis becomes very important as regards the biomass. You know the photosynthetic related traits, for example, nitrogen per unit leaf area, leaf dry mass per unit area, all them, all of these parameters involve laborious and destructive laboratory-based methods, which are known to consume lot of the time of the researchers. Moreover, some other physiological and biochemical traits involved in photosynthetic efficiency, for example, Rubisco activity and electron transport. They are also very time consuming, as most of them are traditional. They are time consuming and laborious, and hence they have all other disadvantages which have already been discussed earlier. So what has been done is that we have been using visual and hyperspectral tools to phenotype these kind of traits. Canopy reflectance obtained from hyperspectral cameras has been emerging as a fast and non-destructive method, as already discussed. Then infrared spectral reflectance of leaves has been correlated with maximum Rubisco activity and electron transport rate, and has been used to predict the photosynthetic efficiency in glasshouse grown soybean plants. Similarly, the indices such as normalized difference with vegetation and AVI and reflectance ratio, as has already been discussed from canopy reflectance, have been used to assess the ground cover, growth, and the biomass yield in several forages. Similarly, visual imaging based indirect selection has been performed for morphological traits, for example, leaf area, plant height, tiller density, plant vigor. uh, all of them have been found to be correlated with the dry matter yield of grasses, as per Majidi et al. 2009. Then another aspect is the phenotyping for the forage quality traits. Since the forage quality traits involve laboratory-based methods, which limit the screening on the large scale, canopy reflectance has been successfully used for determining the forage quality traits. In fact, a linear correlation has been observed between the laboratory-based forage quality traits and the pasture canopy reflectance indices, as reported by Starks et al. 2008. Similarly, in Bermuda grass, crude protein concentration and availability of crude protein were successfully predicted from the ratios derived from the canopy reflectance. Similarly, canopy reflectance of pastures that were measured with the help of airborne hyperspectral imaging has been correlated with the strong correlation coefficient with the crude protein content, organic matter digestibility, and metabolic energy. There are some other applications which have been used for forage improvement, for example, near infrared spectroscopy. It has been reported to be used for selection of improved nitrogen uptake efficiency and total nitrogen concentration. Moreover, this NIRS based methodology has also used to estimate the ergovaline and lignin concentration in grasses. So a little bit on this ergovaline. Basically, it is an ergot toxin. It has been reported in tall fescues. Tall fescues are known to harbor a endophyte, which is a fungus, which is known to produce two kinds of these secondary metabolites. One is the lolene and another is the ergovaline. However, it is the ergovaline which is known to cause trouble in the cattle when fed with the stall fasces. It is a sort of vasoconstrictor and has been known to be responsible for various problems in the cattle. So Roberts et al. In 1997 used this NIR based methodology to estimate the ergovaline in this tall fescues. Similarly, lignin concentration is, as we all know that higher concentration of lignin in grasses is not a desirable trait. So some kind of work has also been done in grasses, and in fact, Andre et al. In 2005 has used this methodology for assessing the lignin concentration in grasses. Then Other applications, several species of grasses have been phenotyped for freezing and salt tolerance through the use of chlorophyll fluorescence technique as already discussed. Then water stress in maize has also been characterized through the thermal imaging. Nowadays, NMR is also being used as one of the tools in this non-destructive methodology, and it has also shown its potential to facilitate the identification and selection of genotypes with a high and homogeneous seed weight at the final harvest, as reported by Waringa et al. 19 and 98. So, I would like to thank all of you for having a patient hearing. However, in the present talk, we have up to now discussed just only the methodologies are available. However, important part of this imaging technologies is that of image processing. Once we get the images, maybe those images are RGB images or IR images, NIR images, then we have to process them. They are processed so as to extract data or useful data from them. So there are robust software systems which are available with us. However, I will not be discussing some laborious one. I will try to introduce you to one of the basic softwares which is used for image analysis. It is a freely available software. We call it as it is called ImageJ software. It has been developed by National Institute of Health, and it has a lot of useful features. So I will try to introduce you to this software and its use. For example, we want to measure the leaf area from digital images. So how will we proceed? And then second one is, for example, we want to measure some citigreen genotypes or slow sensing genotypes. So how we will proceed? So this is a basic image software. These are various commands, that is file, edit, image, process, analyze. These are various tools, then plugins, windows, and help. Then it has also some freehand tools. It has a line tool, it has an angle tool, it has a band tool, and also some other tools such as rectangle or this circle. You can select a portion of the image and accordingly process the same. So suppose we want to measure the leaf area using this software. So how we will proceed is that we will first load the image within the system. Then we will select the image. From the image, we will select the type and we will select the 8-bit. Then we will again go to the image. We will select the adjust, then threshold and apply. Of course, one important point that I would emphasize is that whenever we are going for image analysis in this software, you have to put a reference scale in the background of the image, which can be later on used to select a line of known distance. So when you select the straight line and draw the line, it should be of known length. For that, you will need a scale. So when we draw a line, then you will go to analyze and set the scale. When you say you will set the scale, a new menu opens up, and in the known distance, you will feed the value. Suppose you select a 1 centimeter long scale, then you will feed 1, and in the units you will put centimeters. Then you will go for select the global. Then we will go for analyze, then tools and ROI manager. Then you will use a WAN tool, as I have already shown that. Then you will use WAN tool, and whatever the number of images or number of leaves are there in the image, then you will go on adding one by one. Then once you have done selecting all those leaves, then you will select a measure from the ROI manager. Then you will select a results and summarize, and you will get the leaf area of the individual leaves as well as average of all the leaves. So this way you will be having a picture about the area of the leaf. Then another one is, suppose you want to calculate the RGB pixels from particular image. So how will you proceed is that first you load the image. Once you are done with this, then you will go to plugins. It is the simplest form, though there are some other methods also for calculation or extraction of this RGB pixel. I am showing the most easy one. Then you will go to plugins, then you will analyze and RGB measure. When you say RGB measure, you will get the results as shown below. In the red region, in the green, in the blue, you will get the mean number of pixels in each of the bands. So accordingly, you can record them, and if you want to calculate the leaves, more number of leaves, then you will have to stack the images. Of course, that has some a little bit longer protocol, so that will not be within the purview of this lecture. But one thing I want to show is how to use the image live. Hello. Suppose this is the image software. So we have file here. So you will first open desktop.
Hello, sir.
Pardon? हाँ बोलिए sir.
Are you trying to open the software on your laptop?
Yes sir.
Do one thing: stop sharing, then share entire screen.
Okay.
Stop
Sorry.
sharing right now.
Stop
Then
presenting. Okay.
yeah.
Stop presenting, na?
Yeah. First do
Okay.
that. Then click on present now.
Click on present now. Okay. Present
Then
now.
choose entire screen.
Entire screen. Okay.
Now whatever you do on your screen will be visible to the participants.
Okay.
Otherwise, only the PPT was visible.
Okay.
Now the entire screen is.
Okay.
Can
Sorry.
please do that?
Okay.
Present. Hello.
Okay. हाँ sir.
Present now. Then entire screen. Then share.
Present now. Okay.
Entire screen option. Second, the first option, or just that is the first option. Entire screen. Present
Sir.
now in the window where you used to see my face in the Meet window.
Okay. Just 1 minute. Present now. Entire screen. Okay.
Yes. Share.
But it is not visible.
What's happening next?
Actually, share is not highlighting. Chrome wants to share. Choose what you would like to. I am trying to share. It is not getting highlighted.
Can you refresh the page entirely? You will join back again.
Okay. I will join back. Cancel. So I will. I will close.
No, don't close. Refresh the page. Reload
Okay.
the page. Right click, reload.
Right click.
On the screen where you used to see my face or where the Meet window
Oh,
is. Welcome back, sir. You have muted yourself. Unmute yourself. At the bottom, you have a microphone icon. It would be red. Click on it. Yes.
Okay, okay.
You're unmute.
Am I audible, sir?
Yes, yes.
Okay, okay.
Now share present now entire screen.
Present now, entire screen. But okay, but share is not getting highlighted, sir.
Hello?
Hello,
Is the window option available?
Oh, window.
Like you did previously, a window.
Share your entire screen. Just 1 minute.
Choose the second option. A window also can work.
A window. Yes, 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 yes.
Choose
yes.
the window where the image J option software is.
Okay, 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 okay. Okay. Share. Now
Keep it maximized so that it's yeah, perfect.
It is visible, na, sir? Okay.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, okay. So in this image software, you will first go to file. Now that you have loaded the image.
Is the image loaded? Can you maximize? Because
Okay,
the image J is only visible.
Okay, okay. Is this visible image?
No, the image is not visible, the software is.
Okay, okay. Software. Okay, I will again load, sir. So it is the file icon you select. Now you will open.
Maybe.
Oh,
yeah.
Is it visible, sir? Okay.
In parts.
Okay, okay. Yes, yes, yes. Image. Open. Is it visible, sir?
No, the image is not visible, sir. The only the portion, the menu portion is only visible. Can you maximize the software?
Software. It is actually.
There's some issue. Can't you share your entire screen? What happens if you try to share your entire screen?
I will try. You are presenting. It shows stop presenting. Entire screen. So when I try to share the entire screen,
yeah, what happens?
Share doesn't get highlighted. And when I try to
see if I try my entire screen, see if I try to share.
Okay.
You have to click on it. You have to click on the screen first. In the middle option, you have to click on it.
Okay,
That's
okay.
why it's not getting highlighted.
Okay.
Click on your screen.
I have clicked.
Can you try that time? Yes, perfect.
Is it visible, sir?
Now go to the image software. Now it's working.
Okay, sir. Okay. Visible, sir?
Yes, everything is visible.
Okay.
Minimize the meet. You can minimize the meet.
Okay.
Meet window you can minimize.
Minimize. Where should I minimize it?
At the top right corner, there is asterisk. These options. Further up.
This.
There is minimize. 3 buttons are there: minimize, maximize,
Okay.
and close.
Okay. Minimize.
No. At the top. Furthermore, go.
Okay, sorry. This one.
First one.
Okay.
Yes.
Sir. Okay.
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Now, is it visible, sir?
Image is also visible now. That's why it did not show, because it image opened in a separate window.
Okay. Now it is image is also visible and image is also visible.
Yes,
sir?
everything is visible.
Okay. Now that it is visible, then first of all, you will go to image. So this is what I had been discussing, that whenever you are going to take the images, you should have a scale in the background. So I have used this scale in the background. Now you will go to image, select image, then drop down menu, then you will type the adjust, select type, and you will select the 8-bit. Okay. Then you will again go to the image. Then you will select the adjust. When you select the adjust, it will give several other menus, and then you will select the threshold. Okay. When you say threshold, then you say apply. Okay. Then what you will next do is that you will go to a straight line. This is the straight line as already shown, and you will draw a line of known distance. Suppose we measure this line approximately 2 centimeter long from 9 to 11, that is 2 centimeter long. Okay, now you have drawn a line, then you will again go to analyze, and then you will go to set scale. When it says a new menu will appear. So what you will do here, in the known distance is there, known distance column. So known distance, it is the 2 centimeter that you have selected here. So you will put 2. Okay. Then in the unit length, since it is centimeters, you will put centimeters. Okay, done. Then you will go to and click the global. So this will apply to all. Once you click the global, you will click OK. Now you are done. Then you will go to the analyze. Once you go to analyze, you will select the tools. When you select the tools, within the tools, you go to the ROI manager. So when you have selected this ROI manager, you will use the WAN tool. So this is the WAN tool that we have already discussed. So you will select the WAN tool, and with the help of this WAN tool, you will select the leaves. So now you have selected this WAN tool, and you will select this leaf, and you will add. Then you will go to second leaf, add. Then you will go to third leaf, add. Then you will go to fourth leaf, then add. Then you will go to fifth leaf and add. Now that you have done all of the leaves, then another one is the measure. So you will click this measure from ROI manager. So this way you will get the area within each of the leaves. So first has this much area, second, third, fourth, fifth, and this way, this is the area associated with each of the leaves. Once you are done the results, then you will summarize. So you'll go to results and summarize. So this will give you the leaf area of the first leaf, second, third, fourth, and fifth leaves. And this is the mean leaf area. This is the standard deviation. This is the minimum, and this is the maximum. So this is the basic technique of use of the software in this imaging technology. So then now we want to use another, we want to give another job to this image software. Suppose we want to calculate the RGB pixels. So first we will open image. Okay. Now you have selected. Then we will go to plugins. Then you will go analyze. And then now that here are more number of leaves, it will give all in the RGB value associated with all the leaves. Then you will go to measure RGB. So these are the results. For example, red, green, and blue pixels. That means red pixels is 161, green are 163, and blue are 150. So sorry, these are the mean pixels. Oh yes, these are the pixels associated with the red, green, and the blue colors which are present in the picture. So these are some of the basic applications of the images software. If you want to try at home, you can try them, and you can explore some other functions also. I hope you might have enjoyed the lecture. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for that nice presentation and also the demo of
Thank you.
ImageJ. Thanks a
you.
lot. It was such a wonderful presentation. If there are any questions by the participants, please ask, and sir will be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Nice. Thank you, sir.
Any questions? Any questions?
Sir, good afternoon.
Yeah.
This is Ramakrishna, sir.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Sir, is there any scope for estimation of fodder area in a particular village through this software, in the sense through this remote sensing?
Of course, remote sensing has been used on a profound way for the estimating the areas which are occupied by a particular vegetation type. In fact, you can go National Remote Sensing Agency.
Yes, sir.
They also have a lot of data, since those satellites have been taking images all over India and at different time points. So if you are really interested, they will even provide you data, and it is freely available. So on that basis of those images, you can calculate the area or changes in the fodder area over a period of time.
Sir.
Yes, definitely you can do it.
Sir.
Yes.
And also this yield estimation.
Yes, of course, you can also do it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any other question? I think, sir, there are no further questions. On behalf of NADCL as well as IGFRI, would like to extend gratitude and thanks to you for such a wonderful presentation as well as the demo. And on behalf of the participants as well, I would want to thank you, sir. Would like to hear more of you in the coming sessions or in maybe new trainings. Thank you. Thanks a lot, sir.
Thank you very much for providing me an opportunity to share my understandings. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thanks.
Thank you.
Participants, you may join back at the afternoon session, which is at 2:30. Please join back at 2:30. Thank you.